So again, if you can just please take your seats, we're going to start. My name is Rosa Maria Vidal. I am the director of the Governor's Climate and Forest Fund. And before I become the director of the fund, I also have been involved in working in jurisdictional approaches. I spent 25 years of my life trying to build partnerships in tropical regions. And I am very excited of being moderating this panel just because I see a lot of progress, and what we are going to learn today, it's very exciting progress that we have been working on the different type of stakeholders in the last few years, really trying to move forward from the conceptual idea of jurisdictional sustainability to actually make it happen through policy, through business practices, through dialogues with indigenous people, and through multi-stakeholder processes. This is a panel, an event organized by the Earth Innovation Institute and also by a partner organization, la Alianza Mesoamericana de Pueblos Indígenas, and DAR from Peru. So it is a joint effort from different organizations. So I'm going to start welcoming our panelists. We have here in the table a very interesting group of people that they are going to give us brief comments. I will start introducing Governor Victor Manuel Noriega. And Governor Victor Manuel Noriega, he is a governor of the region of San Martin. And he is also a medical doctor. And he started working in the political arena because of his commitment to social, fairness and equity. And he's just very, very keen on trying to move forward development for the poor and to the communities in San Martin. So thank you for being here, Governor Noriega. I will follow introductions with Fernando Sampaio. Thank you, Fernando, for being here. He's the current executive director of the Produce, Conserve, Include partnership from the government of Mato Grosso. He's an agronomist, and he has been also the president of the Brazilian Roundtable on Beef, sustainable beef. So he has a lot of experience also in trying to move forward the productive sector into sustainability. We have Juan Carlos Villar. He's the regional environmental manager of Loreto, and he's an expert in forestry with more than 16 years of experience in this field. Thank you for being here. And we also have Gustavo Sánchez. Gustavo Sánchez is representing more than 54 indigenous and communities groups in Mexico from the Red Mocaf, and also he's part of the Alianza Mesoamericana de Pueblos y Bosques. Gustavo Sánchez, he is also observer in the FCPF, and he is one of the lead persons in spokespersons for indigenous peoples and communities. So thank you all for being here. We also have a Jeff Seabright. Jeff is the Chief Sustainability Officer of Unilever. And Jeff has not only been working in the private sector, but also has worked in the public sector before. So he has experience of being in the two sides of things. He's now pushing for commitments on the commodities at different levels, and of course working through Unilever, that is one of the leading companies in the Consumers Goods Forum. So thank you for being here, Jeff, also with us. So I'm going to ask Maria Di Giano, that is a scientist and also being involved in these jurisdictional sustainability processes in the Earth Innovation Institute, to come here and to give us a brief context and framework of what is all this about. Thank you, Maria.
Okay, Thank you very much, Rosa Maria, for that introduction. And I'd also just like to welcome you all to our panel. We're very happy as Earth Innovation Institute and AMPB and DAR Peru to welcome you to this important discussion. So first, I'd just like to give a brief presentation about our vision of jurisdictional sustainability as a bottom-up integrated approach to reducing deforestation. So what is jurisdictional sustainability? Here we're referring to the successful transition to sustainable development across an entire political geography. That could be a county, a municipality, a district, a province, or even a nation. And this success is measured in wall to wall. So it's inclusive of all activities, production systems, ecosystems, and really importantly, all the key actors involved. So for example, if you look at this sort of conceptual model of a jurisdiction, if we think about certification processes, usually they're working at the individual farm level or individual mill level with benefits being accrued at that scale. And what we're really trying to do with jurisdictional sustainability is look at wall-to-wall performance and try and include and bring benefits to all actors within that landscape. And we're going to see some really interesting comments and presentations from the people here about different pathways to achieve this. So the theory of change is about coming to some sort of shared definition of success among key actors in a jurisdiction that's really supported by political actors and economic actors. And it's also predicated on enabling conditions that are locked into policies and business models and also land tenure regimes. And this is reinforced by markets, financial flows, the increase of jobs, and also improving people's well-being within those jurisdictions. So essentially, this tries to create a virtuous cycle in which the shared definition of success brings about integrated incentive systems and also monitoring and rewarding of that performance. So the vision for jurisdictional sustainability is really getting to a race to the top to demonstrate progress towards sustainable development that's recognized by markets and reinforced by policies and other actors, so that all products are clean, is focused on continuous improvement, and the sustainability is really the norm. So why do we want to get to jurisdictional sustainability? We've seen a lot of public policies, REDD+ initiatives, certification, corporate pledges are all pushing towards sustainability and reducing deforestation. But oftentimes this progress is constrained by lack of alignments and the limitations at working at the level of individual farms and mills. So it's not to say that these approaches are not necessary. They're very needed, they're part of the solution, but it's that they all need to work together in an integrated way. So some of the key challenges to this vision is obviously sometimes a lack of political and economic support. And I think especially right now, there's some tensions between national level policies and subnational level policies. And coming from the state of California, for example, in the United States, we feel very committed to these subnational actions and the importance of subnational actors in pushing forward with change, especially in the context of perhaps not so friendly national policies. Other kinds of key challenges are perverse incentives, and oftentimes there's just many different definitions of success. It's really hard to know how are we doing. So as I mentioned, we're going to hear some different pathways towards jurisdictional sustainability. So jurisdictional sourcing is one possible pathway, and I believe Jeff will be talking about that, talking about increasing the scale of sustainable production, making it viable. There's also a pathway towards jurisdictional REDD, looking at compensation for emissions reductions across entire jurisdictions and trying to distribute the benefits of those reductions across multiple land users in a single jurisdiction. And our hope is that perhaps the Senator Jorge Viana will come to talk about Acre's model of success in this pathway. There are also endogenous pathways to success, so social movements, political opportunities, regulations. And here, I think the Governor's Climate and Forest Task Force is a really good example of how collective action among subnational actors can solidify political commitments towards reducing deforestation, as I believe some of our panelists from Peru will be talking about. So how do we get there? And I think that's a big question that Rosa Maria brought up. How do we get to jurisdictional sustainability? And at Earth Innovation Institute, we've been part of a strategic partnership called the Sustainable Tropics Alliance that is working at the global level to work with key civil society organizations and jurisdictions to push this agenda forward. The first phase of this work was funded by Norway. And today we are excited to launch the second phase of that work that is being funded by the International Climate Initiative. And so this project is called Implementing Strategies for Regional Transitions to Low Emissions Rural Development in Indonesia, Peru, Mexico, Colombia, and Kenya. And we had hoped that somebody from IKI would be here to provide some comments. Anybody from IKI here? Okay. Anyhow, I think it's just important to mention that we're thrilled about the second phase of this work and hoping to really get into the implementation of some of these processes to come to a shared definition of success and provide monitoring systems to look at performance across jurisdictions. So I think this is an exciting opportunity to hear some real progress being made in these jurisdictions that we have representation from today. So without further ado, then, I will turn it back over to Rosa Maria to carry on with the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. I think it's very exciting to know that there is going to be a second phase of this very important project. And the fact that the Tropical Southern Alliance, that is also based on local stakeholders, bottom-up approaches, and recognizing the capacity that already exists in many of these jurisdictions and trying to link with the global processes. So congratulations for that. So now we are going to hear from our panelists, and I hope that we are going to have a very interactive session. People know that I tend to start asking questions out of the paper. So, but I will try to keep it on the good order, and also to have a little interaction among the panelists too. I think that we have a very interesting group of representatives. Senator, please come. You're here. Welcome. We're just starting, Jorge, Viana. Thank you for being here, Senator. So while the Senator is just taking his seat, I'm just going to say that Jorge Viana, he's a Senator and Vice President of the Federal Senate of Brazil. He was a former governor of Acre and a lead governor in terms of many, the forest agenda of Acre is really very, very much related with the story of Jorge Viana. So we're very happy to have you here, Jorge. We have translation in Spanish and Portuguese, so please, I think that some of our panelists will speak in Spanish and Portuguese, so if you have your headphones ready. So I'm going to start with Governor Noriega, so we can give Jorge Viana some minutes to get into the topic. So Governor Noriega, you have been very active. We have seen you in Paris. We saw you in Barcelona. You have been very active at SIAM also. And becoming a representative of a lot of the efforts happening in Brazil from the regional governments, trying to connect not only with the national processes, but also with the business agenda. So what are the progress you have right now in terms of bringing San Martin to move forward sustainability? What have you been doing? Share us your experiences and also the challenges you are facing.
Gracias, Rosa María. Agradecer a los organizadores, a los miembros de la mesa, personalidades importantes que nos acompañan y a todos los presentes. San Martín es una región que es parte de las regiones amazónicas. La Amazonía en Perú representa alrededor del 60% de su territorio nacional. Nos hemos comprometido y hemos firmado todos los acuerdos de conservación del medio ambiente, de luchar contra la deforestación, de disminuir lo que es la emisión del gas invernadero, y ese compromiso lo estamos cumpliendo. San Martín ha pasado por un proceso en la cual pues hay experiencias exitosas en cuanto a conseguir los objetivos y los acuerdos que nos hemos trazado como una contribución importante para el compromiso que tiene nuestro país, Perú. Y en eso hemos dado algunos saltos, algunos avances en cuanto se refiere, por ejemplo, sea a través de una ley regional, nosotros lo llamamos ordenanza regional, se ha creado lo que es la marca San Martín. La marca San Martín está asociada a lo que es producción, el enfoque producción-protección. Eso lo estamos desarrollando, estamos buscando y activando a todos los actores con la finalidad de fortalecer esta propuesta que si bien se ha iniciado en nuestra región San Martín, pero también es parte de la propuesta que como Amazonía, como Consejo, como regiones amazónicas del Perú, estamos luchando con la finalidad de que se nos asocie a San Martín, a la marca, pues a un control de deforestación, a un control de las emisiones de gas invernadero, y bueno, y lo importante es que se mejore poco a poco la calidad y sea productos competitivos a nivel, no solamente pensamos nacional, sino también a nivel internacional. Necesitamos de una inversión. Como región amazónica, pues tenemos un fondo de inversión de desarrollo de la Amazonía peruana. Este fondo de desarrollo de la Amazonía peruana está orientado a impulsar, a desarrollar, a hacer que nuestros pequeños agricultores no vayan incrementando o deforestando para incrementar las áreas de cultivo, sino lo que buscamos es de las tierras que tienen ya produciendo, se incremente la productividad. Ahora, estos fondos, si bien son importantes, pero son insuficientes. Necesitamos la inversión privada. Se ha creado en nuestra región la Oficina de la Promoción Privada Sostenible, con la finalidad de canalizar estos fondos, de hacer que cualquiera puede ir a invertir en la región. Dos condiciones que nosotros exigimos para esa inversión: que sea ambientalmente sostenible y que sea socialmente inclusivo. De esa manera vamos a poder nosotros impulsando ese desarrollo económico productivo a través de las diferentes cadenas de valor, con incremento de productividad, con valor agregado a sus productos, pues generar mayores ingresos a nuestros pequeños agricultores y a su vez evitar la deforestación. Ese es un camino, un punto importante que nosotros debemos de considerar. Hemos tenido algunas dificultades y una de las dificultades es que tenemos que fortalecer aún más esa articulación de trabajo entre los diferentes niveles de gobierno. Estoy hablando gobierno nacional y los gobiernos subnacionales, y también con la cooperación internacional. Tenemos que hablar un solo idioma, un solo lenguaje, hablando metafóricamente. Tenemos que articular los esfuerzos y hacer que los fondos que tenemos, que puede disponer del nivel de la cooperación internacional, canalizarlos, y que estos fondos no se quede en el intermedio, sino pueda llegar a la población objetivo, que son los pequeños agricultores. Aspiramos que esos pequeños agricultores, a través de una estrategia de la asociatividad, pues se puedan hacer puedan hacer grandes negocios. De esa manera podemos contribuir y estamos contribuyendo. Hemos dado avances importantes, pero creemos y pensamos que se puede hacer mucho más si es que nosotros corregimos esta limitante. Vuelvo a reiterar, del fortalecimiento en la articulación de los gobiernos, gobierno nacional, gobiernos subnacionales, con la cooperación internacional. No queremos que se hagan acciones paralelas, porque eso hace que los recursos no mejoren en obtener resultados más grandes. Tenemos que unir esos esfuerzos bajo esa visión compartida que todos tenemos de controlar la deforestación, de disminuir la emisión de gas invernadero y hacer pues que nuestra gente pueda llegar a ese buen vivir para todas y para todos. Esa es nuestra aspiración y eso es lo que nosotros queremos. Muchas gracias.
Gracias, gobernador.
Gracias.
So I'm going to move now to also a member of SIAM, the region of Loreto in Peru. And if you can, Juan Carlos, tell us a little bit about how in Loreto are you also trying to move forward this sustainability agenda? What type of commitments you already have being part of SIAM? And have you developed similar approaches than in San Martin?
Buenos días a todos, gracias José María, a todos los de la mesa y a todos los visitantes. En primer lugar, un cordial saludo desde Loreto, donde nace el Amazonas, en la Amazonía peruana. En Loreto estamos trabajando arduamente en poder cambiar la matriz económica de Loreto. Loreto ha venido trabajando durante estos últimos años, 20, 25 años, con la economía del petróleo. Entonces, con la crisis mundial ha afectado bastante esto al departamento de Loreto, que ha mellado en las inversiones y en todos los servicios básicos. Entonces, tal es así que la decisión política que ha tomado el gobernador Fernando Meléndez es poder, en principio, poder cambiar la matriz económica de Loreto. Y para lograr esto, o sea, primero teníamos que ver cuál es nuestro potencial. Evidentemente, Loreto es el departamento más grande de Perú. Estamos hablando de 37 millones de hectáreas, que es el 30% de superficie del territorio peruano. Albergamos más de 2 millones de hectáreas de áreas de conservación regional que son administradas por la región, con la cual el Perú está cumpliendo un compromiso global solo con las áreas que tiene Loreto. Y áreas naturales protegidas administradas por el gobierno nacional son alrededor de 9 millones de hectáreas. Asimismo, tenemos otras potencialidades como los humedales, los aguajales, las turberas, que son áreas potenciales por el stock de carbono que estos tienen. Estamos hablando aproximadamente de 6 millones de hectáreas de aguajales y turberas. Y en Loreto hay 2 sitios Ramsar, que son inmensos, que entre los dos sumados te da una superficie de más o menos 5 millones de hectáreas. Entonces, la población indígena que vive en Loreto son 26 grupos lingüísticos que tenemos en Loreto. Entonces, eso es un gran reto, el gran espacio que tiene Loreto y la pluralidad de culturas que tiene Loreto también. Entonces, pero para ello, viendo ya nuestro potencial, hemos empezado a cambiarla desde la planificación. El gobierno regional de Loreto, el departamento de Loreto, ha trabajado su plan de desarrollo regional concertado, en la cual se ha podido enmarcar con una visión a largo plazo ahí de cómo cambiar la matriz económica de Loreto y orientándolo hacia una economía verde. De tal manera que este plan de desarrollo regional concertado es el primero en Perú que tiene una evaluación ambiental estratégica, en la cual podemos, todo lo que hemos planificado, lo que estamos planificando en el plan de desarrollo regional concertado, se está previendo cómo trabajar para no tener consecuencias ambientales negativas con esta evaluación ambiental estratégica. Asimismo, ya tenemos el plan, tenemos las previsiones en la evaluación ambiental estratégica, pero esto tiene que estar plasmado en el territorio. Y para plasmarlo en el territorio hemos hecho todo un proceso de implementación de nuestra infraestructura de datos espaciales en Loreto, en la cual hemos podido poner todo, estandarizar la información cartográfica para poder tomar decisiones adecuadas. Y Loreto no se ha quedado solo ahí, está cooperando con todas las otras regiones amazónicas para seguir en esta misma brega. hemos cooperado con Amazonas, con San Martín, con Ucayali, y haciendo sinergia entre todas las regiones amazónicas, estamos proponiendo al país que estos instrumentos son muy buenos para poder planificar y para poder cambiar el norte de la Amazonía. Asimismo, hay otros instrumentos que estamos trabajando para poder orientarnos hacia la economía verde. Es el sistema de estimación de emisiones de gases de efecto invernadero. Ya de aquí a poco nosotros ya vamos a tener los resultados. En el departamento de Loreto es el primer departamento en el Perú que hemos aplicado la metodología SEC. Lo que pasa es que debemos tener nuestra línea base para saber cuánto es la emisión que tiene Loreto, pues, para ver si avanzamos o no estamos avanzando en este sentido. Y hablando un poco más de matriz económica, de todos estos potenciales que les manifestaba, Loreto está repotenciando la paichicultura y ahí las pesquerías. El paiche es un pez amazónico, el pez amazónico más grande de agua dulce. Aquí tenemos a Karina, que está trabajando bastante en este tema, promocionando el ceviche con peces amazónicos, que es una muy buena iniciativa también. Y en Loreto vamos a trabajar en todo, en estanques y en estado natural, en áreas naturales protegidas vamos a trabajar el paiche, y es más, se está trabajando. Y la parte ambiental, la parte de planificación no trabaja sola, está trabajando bastante articulada con la parte económica y productiva, de tal manera que en Loreto se ha podido articular todos los organismos de línea para poder cumplir con nuestro norte y nuestra visión que tenemos. Asimismo, se está trabajando agresivamente un proceso de titulación de las comunidades nativas con fondos de cooperación internacional y con fondos nacionales también, que creemos que es un pilar fundamental para poder dar la seguridad jurídica a las comunidades nativas. Después se está trabajando, se va a iniciar un proceso de plantaciones también enmarcados en la nueva ley forestal, que nos da una simplificación del proceso de plantaciones, y esto también asociado a las comunidades nativas. Hay dos procesos más, hasta 3, que son la identificación de nuestros humedales en Loreto, en la cuales son espacios donde la economía es bastante dinámica, porque la ley forestal con la cual estamos trabajando en el país no ha normado este espacio, y desde Loreto estamos trabajando para poder apoyar al gobierno nacional a poder normar este trabajo. No obstante, no hemos dejado de lado nuestra zonificación ecológica y económica, que es un instrumento que nos va a ayudar también, aunado a lo que es la planificación, a poder tomar decisiones, nuestros sitios prioritarios. Y importante comentarles que la empresa privada también ya ha visto Loreto por todos estos potenciales que les hemos indicado. La corporación AGE va a trabajar en los humedales del Datén del Marañón, elaborando productos energizantes o bebidas energizantes, y esto con una asociación en espacios naturales, comunidades nativas, gobierno o Estado y empresa privada. Eso es lo que más o menos estamos trabajando en Loreto, y comentarles que estamos promoviendo las cadenas productivas del paiche, del aguaje y del camu camu, ¿no? Que son productos nativos de Loreto, de la Amazonía, y queremos poner a Loreto a disposición del mundo, ¿no? Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. I think these 2 examples from Peru are very interesting, because not only are the commitment from the governors, it's clear, but also they are working at the regional level through SIAM. So the possibility of exchanging information, capacity building, and speed up all these processes is very important. Also, they have this coalition that somehow has increased dialogue with the national government to facilitate, as Governor San Martin mentioned, the flow of resources. Now we're going to move to Brazil, also in the same region, in the Amazon region, where a lot of very interesting processes are happening. And I'm going to start with Fernando Sampaio, because Mato Grosso is as Loreto in Peru, a very, very, very big jurisdiction. And also it's very important because of the amount of production of soy, amount of production of beef. And for many years, I mean, Mato Grosso has been the focus of deforestation. And now they are reverting all that process and putting together a very interesting initiative. So Fernando, if you can tell us about how to build this multi-stakeholder process, how to move forward in having the different sectors aligned.
Well, thank you, Maria. Thank you to the Earth Innovation for this invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. I think what we are trying to build in Mato Grosso is directly related to jurisdictional sustainability. Mato Grosso is a very big state, a very big commodities exporter of soy, beef, cotton, other products. And what we want is to create some kind of sustainable development for the rural landscape. You have, of course, in Brazil, the agriculture that is growing because there's an international demand for these products. We have a big livestock production. We have the Brazilian Forest Code that creates an agenda for Brazil to recover 12 million hectares of forests to be legal compliant. And of course, Mato Grosso itself has 60% of its regional forests is still preserved, and we want to keep it that way. So what was done in Mato Grosso was this initiative called the PCI to produce, conserve, and to include in order to unite all the stakeholders on a single strategy, and a strategy that was embraced by the Mato Grosso government. It was presented last year in the climate conference in Paris. So it has very ambitious targets on these different areas: produce, conservation, and inclusion. So what we want to do is basically to expand our agriculture over pasture areas, not over the forests. I think from all the commodities that Brazil produces, livestock is the only one that we can increase the production and at the same time reduce the area that it occupies. So I had a long experience in the round table for sustainable beef in Brazil, and it's possible to increase productivity, to liberate areas for the agriculture, for the conservation, for the forest code. So these are the targets on the production side. On the conservation side, we want to reduce the deforestation of the Amazon and of the Cerrado by 90% in the Amazon, 95% in the Cerrado. And we want to promote the inclusion of the smaller farmers into the system. So these targets were agreed by everyone that was participating on the initiative. And like I said, the government of Mato Grosso embraced this initiative and assumed it as a strategy of the government of the state. And now we are developing a plan of action. What must happen so we can reach these targets in 2030? And we are starting to measure if they are happening or not, where they are happening, why not. So we can develop actions that can be from the private sector, that can be from the government, could be changes in regulations, could be incentives, could be investments that are needed in Mato Grosso. And the idea behind it is that today, for example, on the commodity business, there is an unknown risk for the companies that work on the trade associated with the commodities. And what they're trying to do is that all these companies, they have their commitments and their criteria to purchase soybeans or cattle or anything. And what is happening is that these demands are coming from the retailers, from the manufacturers, going to the processors and going to the farmers. And what they have to do is that they have to look one by one to see if they are compliant or not with all these criteria. So we have all these different companies with different commitments, and they are looking to verify if what they are buying it's okay or not. And this looks very expensive, but you will have a lot of people trying to verify the same thing. And actually, our idea is that if we work on the actions that are going to improve these targets, to reduce deforestation, to increase the inclusion of small farmers, is that we can make the risk of the entire jurisdiction so low that actually you can buy from anyone inside that area. And that will be much more cheap for everyone, for the companies. Maybe Jeff will have comments on that. But the fact is that this system today, as it is, you are also excluding a lot of people that are not compliant with this criteria. And you are throwing these people out of a normal trade way. So we have to find ways to bring these people in the trade. They are going to improve if they can make money on their activity, on their agriculture. And we also can think about the investment side. It's not only we are going to sell better our products, but it will be easier to get investments there if the risk is also low for the investors. So it works on both ways, on the trade and on the investment side. And that's why we are working together with the private sector, with the farmers associations, with the social movements and the NGOs in Mato Grosso, so we can put this plan in action, so we can start measuring and reaching the targets that we settled for 2030.
Thank you. Fernando, Fernando pointed out a very important issue, that is how to reduce the risk for investors. And so I think that's just, something very important that has been discussed during the different sessions at the side events at the COP, and how to reduce the risk, how to increase the transparency, and how to include the ones that are not yet participating in the supply chain. Senator Viana, you want to provide a comment on, I mean, based on all these years of experience, trying to promote a government based on forests, protecting forests in Acre, and having a state that has been the leading example of a RED system. If you think that green is good for citizenship, for getting votes, for keeping leaders at the job, what do you think in terms of the political call that green or sustainable jurisdictions can have to move forward policies at different levels?
Queria agradecer a oportunidade e pedir desculpas pelo atraso, que eu estava com dificuldade de encontrar a sala, eu estava num outro compromisso. E pedir desculpas também, vou tentar dar uma contribuição falando em português. E isso exige que a maioria use da tradução. Eu penso que o Brasil, nesse tema, nessas questões que estão envolvidas nas COPs todas, tem tido um papel muito importante. Foi sede dos principais eventos que deram origem a essa agenda que nós tratamos aqui hoje em Marrakech, na Rio 92, na Rio +20. Foi também o país que mais contribuiu com redução de desmatamento de floresta no mundo. É também, acabei de ter uma reunião com o diretor-geral da FAO, é o país que tem a maior expectativa de ampliar a sua produção de alimentos para diminuir a fome no mundo. E é o país que tem a maior área de floresta tropical do planeta. E talvez a maior extensão de terras agricultáveis. Bem, esse é um país também tropical, sensível às mudanças climáticas e, obviamente, a qualquer alteração que tenhamos no clima, como já estamos experimentando no Brasil. Mas entendo que há uma situação que eu queria trazer aqui, o caso clássico do Acre, talvez colabore bem para a sustentabilidade jurisdicional que se acertadamente trabalha. As experiências de combate a desmatamento, elas aconteceram nos estados brasileiros. São 27 estados no Brasil. É ali que, na prática, com a ação dos estados, Mato Grosso, Acre, Rondônia, Amazonas, Pará, Roraima, Amapá, que se conseguiu reduzir o desmatamento na Amazônia. Obviamente, com a ação do governo central. Mas, no caso do Acre, especificamente, a preocupação com floresta, com meio ambiente, começou na década de 80, com Chico Mendes. Veio da sociedade civil a preocupação com esse tema, e não das políticas públicas. Veio de uma inspiração do Chico Mendes, quando ninguém discutia a questão ambiental, sustentabilidade, florestal, na década de 80, e um líder de populações nativas trouxe esse tema. Eu tive a oportunidade de trabalhar com ele, como engenheiro florestal recém-formado. E foi aí que eu assumi compromisso com essa questão. Estou me referindo à década de 80. O Chico Mendes foi assassinado em 88, exatamente por defender essas ideias que hoje estamos discutindo na COP22. Essa era a grande arma perigosa que ele apresentava contra os latifundiários. Preocupação com o meio ambiente, com a conservação das florestas. Perdeu a vida por isso. E, em 90, num grupo, Marina Silva, eu e outros, começamos a trabalhar mais fortemente com esse tema. O Brasil não tratava dessa questão ainda, a não ser com algumas ONGs, algumas organizações não governamentais e alguns movimentos da sociedade civil. Mesmo o movimento sindical não recepcionava essa questão. Achava que não era um tema importante. E muito menos as políticas públicas. Então, na nossa luta no Acre, que era uma luta, que eu diria, foi uma espécie de luta pioneira no Brasil, em defesa das florestas, das populações tradicionais, começou a virar uma referência, e um ponto de referência para pressionar o Brasil, para pôr fim ao crescente desmatamento. E no Acre, nós conseguimos ter uma inserção política. Eu fui eleito prefeito da capital em 93, defendendo floresta. Depois fui eleito governador em 98, em 98, e o símbolo do governo era essa árvorezinha que eu estou pondo aqui na lapela. Implantamos o governo da floresta, e parecia algo muito estranho. Alguém se eleger na Amazônia brasileira e o slogan do governo ser governo da floresta. Porque a floresta era tida como uma grande adversária do desenvolvimento, da produção de alimentos, da prosperidade econômica. E nós começamos a trabalhar políticas públicas no sentido de, num caminho contrário disso. Falando que o principal ativo econômico nosso eram as florestas, que as políticas econômicas tinham que estar vinculadas à floresta. Isso foi muito difícil, muito difícil. Tivemos que fazer um zoneamento ecológico econômico primeiro, tivemos que pacificar a relação entre fazendeiros, índios, seringueiros, isso nós conseguimos fazer também, e começamos a estabelecer leis. A primeira lei que nós fizemos foi a Lei Chico Mendes, em janeiro de 1999, criando remuneração por serviço ambiental para quem trabalhava com castanha e com borracha, com produtos da floresta. Essa foi a primeira lei do meu governo. E, a partir daí, nós conseguimos reduzir, primeiro, drasticamente o desmatamento e melhorar os indicadores econômicos e sociais a partir de uma visão nova de desenvolvimento, e aí incluindo a palavra sustentável, o conceito sustentável. O tempo é curtíssimo, mas tem um conjunto de leis que nós fizemos, até mesmo na cooperação do trabalho que se faz nessas políticas subnacionais. Tivemos cooperação, trabalhando a questão de rede. Até hoje, nós criamos talvez uma estrutura de leis que começou em 99, veio até 2015, que pode ser tida como uma referência do que um Estado local pode fazer. Mas as limitações são grandes, porque, obviamente, que nós temos uma força muito grande no Estado Nacional, e o que nós queremos é isso, que as políticas públicas incorporem as experiências que os estados, que a sociedade, que as populações tradicionais estão fazendo. Então, o Brasil criou um aparato de lei importante, fez a revisão do Código Florestal, eu fui relator, criou a Lei de Ciência e Tecnologia nova, a Lei de Acesso à Biodiversidade, que complementam, aí eu estou falando de lei federal, complementam esse aparato jurídico que pode permitir a implantação do que a gente entende como desenvolvimento econômico sustentável. Eu queria concluir só deixando aqui uma preocupação. Tivemos redução do desmatamento e alguém pode perguntar, isso tem custo? Tem custo reduzir o desmatamento. As populações que vivem na Amazônia, as populações tradicionais, estão pagando um custo, porque os índios, os seringueiros, as populações nativas, elas têm ganhos econômicos a partir da supressão da floresta, para implantar suas atividades econômicas. Quando você para isso, quem paga essa conta? Como ficam os custos sociais e ambientais? O Brasil mudou sua agenda, tem uma agenda verde hoje, mas às custas também de um sacrifício, eu diria, das populações tradicionais que vivem na Amazônia. E esse é o problema que nós temos hoje, o grande desafio. Como vamos fazer para manter o desmatamento reduzindo, mas com ganho econômico e social para as populações tradicionais? Porque no Brasil o agronegócio está indo bem. Vive da exportação, é importante na economia do Brasil. Mas a produção de alimentos interna no Brasil é muito vinculada à agricultura familiar, à pequena produção. E nós temos um problema grave na Amazônia. Reduzimos o desmatamento, mas não melhoramos como desejaríamos e como os Objetivos do Desenvolvimento Sustentável estabelecem os indicadores sociais e econômicos da Amazônia. Então, acho que não basta só política local, temos que ser política de Estado, mas a agenda que fica num debate como esse é como vamos pegar as experiências de estados como Acre e outros que se apresentam aqui, mas como o mundo, de alguma maneira, participa na redução desses custos sociais e ambientais que as populações locais se submetem por conta da redução do desmatamento, que é tão necessária para a questão da mudança climática no planeta. Obrigado.
Thank you very much. I think that with all these examples, there are jurisdictions that are working in the policies trying to solve many issues: poverty reduction, participation, reducing conflicts, bringing stakeholders together to agree in a common vision, linking with the national policies, trying to attract investors, trying to improve supply chains. I mean, there is a lot in the agenda of sustainability. I would like to now hear from stakeholders of these governments, and especially I'm going to start with Gustavo first. As a leader of a large network of communities, and also you have been involved in, the national process of RED. You are part of the National Commission on Forestry. How you see these processes in the jurisdictions being also helpful for communities, or you still think that there are many other things to do to link policies and benefits? What is your opinion on regarding these experiences of jurisdictional sustainability?
Bueno, muchas gracias. Quisiera reconocer la iniciativa del Innovation Institute por promover este diálogo. Me da mucho gusto estar aquí con todos los panelistas porque representamos puntos de vista distintos y desde nuestra experiencia, desde el punto de vista de organizaciones indígenas y de comunidades locales de esta región de Mesoamérica que está comprendida entre México y Panamá, queremos comentar que el enfoque de jurisdicción sostenible coincide en muchos aspectos con las visiones indígenas y campesinas de un desarrollo integral. Para aspirar a este desarrollo sostenible a nivel de jurisdicción, desde nuestro punto de vista, es necesario que emparejemos el terreno para todos los actores. El tema de la desigualdad y de la falta de derechos, desde nuestro punto de vista, es uno de los aspectos fundamentales, sobre todo tratándose de pueblos indígenas y de comunidades locales y grupos de afrodescendientes, donde no se puede hablar de hacer un negocio o una gestión sustentable si los pueblos no tienen reconocido su derecho a la tierra, si no tienen reconocido su derecho a ser consultados sobre el desarrollo que quieren, cuando no tienen acceso a recursos para el desarrollo. En algunos de nuestros países, las comunidades indígenas o campesinas no pueden abrir una cuenta de banco porque los bancos no los ven como sujetos confiables, y si no pueden abrir una cuenta de banco, menos van a tener acceso a un crédito. También, bueno, se nos ha criminalizado a las organizaciones por hacer la defensa de los territorios por el tipo de desarrollo que quieren estas comunidades. Para nosotros, estos procesos han sido muy útiles, Rosa María, el participar en procesos como la definición de las estrategias red ha permitido, por una parte, visibilizar el papel que juegan estas comunidades indígenas y campesinas en la lucha contra el cambio climático y la necesidad de tener espacios de participación donde estos grupos no solo son actores importantes, son actores estratégicos, porque en sus territorios se va a dar todos estos cambios que se pretenden hacia un desarrollo bajo en emisiones. Nosotros consideramos que no todos los cambios dependen de recursos, no dependemos necesariamente de que los países desarrollados proporcionen recursos para el combate al cambio climático. Hay muchas cosas que se tienen que dar a través de la concertación en nuestros países a nivel nacional y subnacional. Quiero poner un ejemplo. En el caso de México, estamos trabajando, tejiendo una alianza entre organizaciones de la sociedad civil, organizaciones indígenas y comunitarias. Aquí vemos a nuestros amigos de Reforestamos México, que estamos impulsando una alianza para la legalidad del mercado de la madera en México, que es uno de los obstáculos que tenemos para que la gestión forestal sea sostenible. En México hay estimaciones de que el 70% de la madera que circula en el mercado tiene un origen ilegal. Y me parece que la situación anda de manera similar en muchos países. Y no podemos hablar de sostenibilidad o de tener una política o un negocio que sea amigable con el medio ambiente si tenemos estas disparidades en el mercado. Y este tipo de cambios requieren de voluntad política de los gobiernos, pero también de la participación de la iniciativa privada, de que quienes compran madera empiecen a preocuparse de cuál es su origen y de que los consumidores también no acepten productos que no sean libres de deforestación. Finalmente, para redondear mi participación, Rosa María, nosotros estamos en este tipo de eventos muy alentados por el Acuerdo de París, que empieza señalando que los pueblos indígenas y las comunidades locales tienen que ser tomadas en cuenta en el diseño de las políticas climáticas. Y nosotros esperamos que en unos días nuestros gobiernos nos den buenas noticias sobre los acuerdos que se tomen aquí para implementar el Acuerdo de París, y que todo esto nos sirva para que en casa, a nivel nacional y a nivel de jurisdicción, podamos empujar cambios hacia el futuro, hacia unas jurisdicciones sostenibles. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Gustavo. Now we are going to move to private sector with Jeff from Unilever. And I think that for now, several years, we have heard about this great network of companies that have been committed to reduce deforestation from their supply chain. And as this copies implementation, as just Gustavo mentioned, and we already seen a lot of implementation happening in the jurisdictions, we want to hear from you, Jeff, how you see really putting in place these commitments, how you working with governments or with producers, and what are still the challenges you see to respond to the governors and, you know, like having these commitments for jurisdictional sourcing perhaps in the future. What you can share with us?
Great. Well, thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's an honor to be on such a distinguished panel and to try to bring some of the voice of progressive business into this discussion. Really, I just want to make, I think, 4 broad points. The first is just a reminder, and I think Senator Viana very much touched on it, and that is that this agenda that we're talking about today is at the heart of the climate development nexus. I mean, this is ground zero. We're not going to reach 1.5 degrees if we don't address land use, and we're certainly not going to address the development opportunities and challenges that are laid out in the SDGs without this. And so reconciling, as Fernando has in this, the phrase for Mato Grosso of produce the economic side, conserve the environmental side, and include, which is the social side, that's really the opportunity. And this is a very powerful platform for us to drive this agenda forward. I really do believe it's the path ahead. So very humble to be here and to be working on this, but extremely committed and very excited. A quick comment on sort of the journey here, and then get into a specific project that we're engaged in, and then conclude with some observations. You know, if you go back just to 2010, I think what you saw with the Consumer Goods Forum, and Unilever was very much a part of it, with the resolution to clean up the supply chains of these big companies on the 4 key commodities driving tropical deforestation: soy, palm, beef, and timber. It was a consumer sensitivity that we as consumer goods companies don't want to be providing products to our consumers that come from environmental degradation, and increasingly an awareness and a sensitivity around the social agenda, not just the rights of indigenous peoples, but the challenge around forced labor and other human rights issues in these supply chains. So bringing the best of what we can to the market for our consumers was a big motivation. You had the red agenda and then the emerging kind of business agenda moving in parallel paths, which now have begun through the New York Declaration, which included jurisdictions, not just national governments, businesses, indigenous peoples organizations, coming together to focus on this common challenge and opportunity. And of course, the Tropical Forest Alliance, which has been created as an effort to help create a multi-stakeholder platform to drive this broad agenda forward. So I think we've seen a convergence of some powerful forces, bringing the power of the public sector and public donors and forest country engagement, along with how we can engage the private sector, private investment, to make markets work, not against this objective, but to accelerate inclusive and sustainable growth. So I think this is the transformational opportunity, and a very, very, very exciting one. Quick example of what we've begun to work on. So we've made a commitment as Unilever at Paris a year ago that we will preferentially source from jurisdictions that have land use planning commitments and policies in place that are both socially and environmentally progressive, that are trying to do the right thing. That if we are going to put our procurement dollars and euros, you know, into a commodity, we would rather give our business to jurisdictions that are trying to do the right thing. And I'll come back to that in a moment, for the obvious reasons that we want to bring the very best of what we can to our consumers, and we want to see this sort of transformational change occur, because the challenges are just so enormous. We have entered into I think, a very exciting initial project. We have several projects going, but the one I want to just briefly touch on is in Central Kalimantan in Indonesia. Palm oil, you know, a big commodity there. We've entered into a 3-year memorandum of understanding with the provincial government of Central Kalimantan and the district government, and 3 villages in particular, and the NGO Inobu, to really work with the local farmers initially in one village to do the mapping, to address some of the land tenure, land rights issues, and to help build their capacity. 40% of the palm oil that is under cultivation in Indonesia comes from smallholder farmers, but their yields are often half of what commercial plantations generate. We can stop deforestation, increase incomes and yields without additional deforestation in Indonesia. That is our vision. But that means really helping the smallholder farmers, or aggregating their abilities, getting the right legal structures in place, which only governments can really help with, and then bringing the private sector. So our ability to buy the offtake, to say, if you build it, if you step forward and engage with these programs, we will buy this, and we are a very solid purchaser in the market, and that can then be used to credit enhance the finance to help keep the circle, virtuous circle of ambition going. So we're very excited about it. We've got several other projects going, but I think it's an example of something that we've just begun that we think is going to be a powerful example, and there are some other examples I could speak about. In conclusion, I guess I just want to touch a little bit on, I was really struck by the La Marca San Martin. I mean, I think this is the theory of change that I see in this space, which is that visionary leaders take on the challenge of bringing public and private together to create a brand value for that jurisdiction that companies like mine will want to invest in, because it becomes not just a sustainability credential, it's much more cost effective. Going to Fernando's point, it's much more cost effective if I know that my procurement from San Martin is done in the right way, that I can be proud to bring that to my consumers and tell that story, as opposed to doing the traceable certification programs that are sort of chasing this. So I think the power of getting this right, of the virtuous circle of public policy, private investment, respect for human rights, indigenous peoples, improving the livelihoods of smallholder farmers, to create that virtuous circle, has a huge benefit for business and for the people that we're trying to serve, and for the environment. So very excited to be here, and I see that I'm out of time. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we have some minutes to receive some questions from the public. I was going to make additional questions to the panel, but I think that you probably are eager to ask some questions. So we can take some few questions from the public, from the audience. Start here, and then with Francis. We have microphone? Okay. All right. We need a microphone, so yeah. So
here we go.
Perhaps you can come here. Okay.
This is an interactive audience. Look at this. Everybody's helping out.
Thank you for all the right behind you. Thanks. Yeah. If you can introduce yourself, say your name and.
Yeah, my name's Alistair Handley. I'm with the Climate Smart Group. And Jeff, I'm wondering if Unilever has any plans to become carbon neutral, much like Monsanto did last year. And if you are, if you're going to be looking at an insetting program or buying offsets from the agricultural sector to help you reach that goal.
Let's probably we can take a few questions first. Francis, they're in the back. Francis, no, allá, por favor. Trying to coordinate that.
I think so. You hear me? No.
Sí o no?
Thanks for a great panel. I want to follow up on the first framing and then Jeff's last comment. I think, at least for me, part of the implicit theory of change of the jurisdictional sustainability approach is that those companies in the supply chain that have made commitments to sustainability will be willing to use their political muscle to lobby governments to put into place the enabling conditions and upwardly harmonized standards to actually make this the norm across jurisdictions, as was described by some of the earlier speakers. And yet, at least for me, I find that the number of examples of companies at least publicly exercising that pressure are kind of rare. And I just wonder if anyone on the panel, whether representing a company that would be willing to share an experience, maybe without proper names, of instances where you've been willing to, stretch and really go out on a limb to say this is a policy change that we really need to make this work. Or on the other hand, those of you who are elected officials, can you point to an example of where a company, again, can be without a proper name, came to support you in trying to do something progressive, or maybe where you had hoped that companies would support you and then they didn't? Because I think that's a really important element of the theory of change, of how the supply chain commitments can evolve to jurisdictional scale improvement in performance. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that I'm going to keep it like this too, because this question was kind of long, and then I will take other two questions. So probably, Jeff, if you want to start, and perhaps then a comment from the governments.
Sure, I'll be very brief. Thank you. So on the carbon neutral question, so we've set actually a goal back in 2010 to reduce the carbon across our entire value chain by half by 2020. And that includes not just our supply chain and our operations, but also consumer use, which interestingly is 60% of the total. So we make a lot of shampoo, for example. All of the energy used for hot water heating to use our products, we include in that calculation. And what we're finding is that we are able to do a pretty good job in our supply chain, and certainly a very good job in our operations. The consumer use and behavior change is a very tricky and challenging aspect of this climate equation, and that's a big learning. For our own operations, we've set a goal of being 100% renewable worldwide, zero coal by 2020, and 100%, including thermal energy, renewable energy by 2030, and that we will generate more clean energy than we use and provide the surplus back to communities and or markets. So we're looking to be a net generator of renewable energy as part of this equation. So we're not in the market for offsets. We're driving it aggressively in our business, but support the efforts of others. On public advocacy, Francis, great question. We have, been very vocal. It's often much more effective to be discreet and make the position known, because certainly as a large multinational company, it can be very counterproductive to try to put your position out there in a way that then challenges governments that can create a negative reaction. So we've been trying to be very constructive partners everywhere that we're working, including in West Africa. And tomorrow we're going to be announcing the TFA West Africa palm oil initiative, and been very engaged in working with 9 countries in Africa on that. But I think it is a challenge, because when you're a large entity, I think you want to walk softly, but try to focus. We have been very successful, I think, in helping bring people together recently, and this doesn't directly answer your question, but I just want to mention it because I'm so happy about it, which is the high carbon stock approach process that brought together quite a few voices from civil society and business and others around how to balance some of these social environmental challenges around conservation values, social and high carbon stock in the forest arena. So,
from de los gobiernos, si hay comentarios sobre qué son aspectos que facilitarían la relación con el sector privado. What do you need from the private sector to become more, like enabling this environment to support jurisdictional sourcing, for example? Anyone from the governments? Perhaps Mato Grosso, that you're working on that specifically?
Yeah, just to answer her a little bit, in Mato Grosso, at least, we are being very successful in bringing the private sector to the initiative. And I think their direct interest is related to the amount of risk they are running on their operations today, and they want to make it smaller. So they are pretty much getting involved and supporting the targets that the government and this multi-stakeholder coalition is setting for the state of Mato Grosso. But I mean the main attraction for them, I think, is still lowering the risk of operating in that jurisdiction.
Somebody else ¿Alguien más que quiera comentar sobre la pregunta de Francis?
Sí, en Loreto hay una experiencia interesante con una empresa transnacional que es Cola Real. A través de Profonampe se ha identificado en un sector potencial para trabajar en estos humedales y que tiene un adicional de la asociación con las comunidades indígenas. Entonces ellos van a trabajar en una planta de procesamiento de bebidas, de aguaje y de ungurahua, y en este sector van a trabajar con las comunidades nativas, y el gobierno, el Estado, a través de sus diferentes instancias, van a trabajar en el proceso de formalización de todas estas iniciativas de ahí. Entonces hay la confianza de la empresa de poder trabajar con procedimientos de energía limpia también.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I think it's how to improve the enabling conditions so the private sector can do business in, with the certainty of the policies are in place and the legal capacity of the stakeholders to engage is also clear. So everybody can, be included in a fair way. We have two additional questions, and here. If please.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Paulo Dario. I am Brazilian. I work for Greenpeace, but in fact, I am also the coordinator of the soy moratorium in Brazil, together with the industry. And it's a very interesting panel. I'd like to thank you for this. There was some comment, one comment that was made by Senator Viana that brought me to my attention. Every time we talk about sustainable production, and we include the cost of this, fight for deforestation, there is the cost of it, the social cost of this, which is true. And this is one of the questions that I would like to make to you guys. What is the best way of ensuring that this convention and the fight against climate changes provides a tool to help local communities to improve development? Via the climate fund, via the market, via a taxation on carbon that is an alternative that could be very exciting. This would be the question for of you. But I'd like to flag that we, in the soya moratorium, the soya was very much involved with causes, but was a very strong cause of deforestation in the Amazon, and in Mato Grosso state in particular, because it's the largest producer. And in 10 years, has resulted in a mechanism to give a lot of contribution. And this shows that if you fight deforestation, you keep open the market. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, let's keep it short. We're going to take two more questions in the back and here, please. Yes, be concrete. Yeah. So.
I thank you all for all the comments on the panel so far. It's been extremely interesting. My name is Ben Abram. I'm a researcher at the University of Oxford. We've mostly heard and talked about so far cases where increased private sector investment can be aligned with reductions in deforestation and also aligned with benefits for local communities. Surely this is not always the case. We heard a little bit about in Acre, how there's still a question of forest-dwelling communities not necessarily receiving those benefits. I'd like to hear some more from the panelists about how advancing a jurisdictional approach will deal with these cases where it's not a win-win for everyone and perhaps there are trade-offs to be made. How are those situations dealt with? Are they ignored? Or what is the best way for dealing with those situations where perhaps it's not so easy? Thank you.
Thank you. Last question here.
Marcos, yeah. Marcos Yank from BRF Brazil Foods, which is hello. Okay, Marcos Yank from BRF Brazil Foods, a large Brazilian food company which is exporting to Asia today. Hello, hello. Do you have another one?
Sí.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hola,
Okay.
hola, hola.
Yeah.
Hello. Okay.
Okay.
Marcos Yank from BRF Brazil Foods, Brazilian company exporting to Asia. Today, I'm living in Asia for 2 years. My question is about the Asia agenda, because 15 years ago, our exports from Brazil, which is one of the largest exporters of food, went to Europe, and Europe was the agenda of sustainability. Today, our main clients are in Asia, especially China, but also other Asia countries. My question to you is not only how to approach stakeholders in Asia to include this agenda, which is not as strong as in Europe, but the second question is how to incorporate sustainability in trade, because we've been talking a lot about sustainability in production, like we are seeing today. But the trade patterns are determined by countries, and countries protect some sectors and not others. So we are not really looking in terms of trade, what's the best result for the world in terms of water footprint, in terms of carbon, in terms of energy. You see, so how to incorporate this in a sector that has a lot of non-tariff barriers and tariff barriers. So market access is a big issue. How to incorporate that, especially in Asia.
Thank you. So we have 3 questions. One is, what is our call for this COP in terms of mobilizing the resources from the different instruments? The Green Climate Fund, all these different instruments to really bring benefits to the local communities. And the second question was about how we assure these benefits to the local communities again, and how we put together policies in which everybody wins. And the third one is how we include sustainability in the trade, and especially in Asia markets. So who wants to take one of those? Anybody? So we start with Gustavo. Perhaps we can also move to some of the governments.
Bueno, sobre la pregunta de en qué invertir para, digamos, tener mejores resultados en materia de sostenibilidad, quiero citar aquí un artículo que se publicó de manera reciente por un exdirector de CIFOR, el señor David Kaimowitz, donde señala que una de las maneras más económicas, eficientes y oportunas para reducir las emisiones en el ámbito forestal es invertir en el tema de derechos. Si protegemos a las comunidades indígenas y comunidades locales, ellas van a cuidar y proteger y manejar bien los bosques. Me parece que también otro tema en el que tenemos que tener cuidado es diseñar sistemas de distribución de beneficios que sean incluyentes. Por ejemplo, los países que estamos entrando en la etapa de ejecución de los proyectos RED, estamos en la discusión de quién es el titular de los derechos sobre la reducción de emisiones. ¿Es el gobierno? ¿Son las comunidades? Tal vez la pregunta no tenga una respuesta en blanco y negro. Necesitamos construir arreglos donde todos ganemos para que realmente haya un desarrollo equitativo. Gracias.
Gracias, Gustavo. Jeff.
So briefly, just on each of the 3 points, I think, for this COP, we're here in Africa. I think the nexus of development and climate, and especially on land use and agriculture. I know that the Moroccan government is pushing the AAA initiative, but really focusing on this as a huge opportunity to get it right and move forward. I think that's one very important message coming out of the COP, and that it's not just the national governments negotiating text. it's all the non-state actors coming together. You've seen there are many of them on this panel and elsewhere to make that vision a reality. So the action agenda going forward. So I think that's sort of one level. And I think the jurisdictional approach is at the heart of that. On the question on trade-offs, I think, part of the opportunity is by blending public and private, we can help expand and accelerate the space where there aren't trade-offs by helping raise the bar by using blended sort of resources and expertise and skills and assets to expand the opportunity set. And for those areas where there are hard cases and hard trade-offs, that's really where I think the public sector needs to focus, because if the private sector can't get there, then that's really what we need the public sector to do. So hopefully that answers that question. On trade, totally agree. I mean, border taxes on carbon, huge challenge there is that you are multiplying a hugely complex agenda times another hugely complex agenda, and you may end up not being able to get traction. But I think it makes enormous sense, because this is really about how we're going to govern our our economies in the totality. But I'm not very optimistic in the short term, especially what's been going on in my country, that we're going to be able to bring these two together.
Thank you. We're running out of time, I think, but we're going to take just two comments. One, perhaps I'm going to start with Governor Noriega from San Martín.
Bueno, en primer lugar, agradecer a Jeff porque comparte con nosotros esa visión de desarrollo sostenible a través de la generación de una marca que tiene el enfoque protección-producción, que eso tenemos que fortalecerlo, y teniendo en cuenta pues el enfoque también jurisdiccional. Ahora bien, la inversión pública es insuficiente para poder desarrollarlo. Necesitamos canalizar esa inversión de la comunidad internacional para aumentar este fondo de inversión pública y poder ayudar a estos pequeños agricultores a través de una serie de técnicas, incrementar su productividad, diversificar su productividad, y de esa manera estaremos consolidando lo que es este anhelo de todos de controlar la deforestación. Esa es una necesidad que nosotros tenemos. Alguien ha preguntado cómo hacer que la población objetivo donde se inicia pueda llegar más recursos. A través de este fondo, administrado por una entidad de prestigio, pueda hacer que se garantice que pueda llegar al pequeño agricultor. Vuelvo a reiterar, y a nombre de los pequeños agricultores, ellos no quieren regalos. Lo que quieren es que se les dé esa oportunidad a través de financiamientos con intereses que les permita a ellos poder salir adelante.
Gracias, gobernador. ¿Y alguien más en la mesa? Somebody else wants to say something? Jorge, Viana? Last words of this panel, Jorge.
Eu achei muito importante as intervenções de todos, mas queria ressaltar do Marco Janck e do Paulo Adário, que levantam questões que eu acho que mostram a complexidade que temos no sentido de cumprirmos ou tornarmos realidade o Acordo de Paris. O acordo é muito complexo, cada país com seus objetivos, suas metas, num prazo pré-estabelecido. E nós tivemos mudanças importantes no mundo. Uma foi muito bem colocada pelo Marco Janck. Mudou a base consumista do mundo, saiu da Europa e veio para a Ásia. Os consumidores e os países europeus eram aliados quando cobravam a origem dos produtos, questionavam como eram produzidos. Essa agenda ela foi trabalhada na produção e no consumo. O grau de exigência dos governos da Ásia e dos consumidores da Ásia é completamente diferente do grau de exigência dos governos e consumidores da Europa. Então, nós vamos fazer a implementação no acordo com uma mudança muito significativa no mercado. que consome produtos que vêm de áreas tropicais, né, especialmente. A Aliança Ásia-Pacífico é algo muito forte. E um outro componente que agrava e amplia a complexidade da implementação do acordo é a eleição dos Estados Unidos. Se tivermos um governo americano que não prioriza, não estabelece com o poder que tem, a importância de mecanismo para financiar, e aí eu estou falando de recursos para que se possa ter a implementação, fica muito mais complexa ainda a implementação do acordo. Eu queria só dizer que, nos ODS, nos Objetivos do Desenvolvimento Sustentável, a fome é o número 1. Floresta tem uma importância fundamental também colocada. E acho que o maior aliado de quem produz alimentos é o meio ambiente. Mas isso não está previsto nas legislações, na apresentação de impostos, nem na produção e muito menos na parte da comercialização, como foi colocado. Eu acho que nós temos que fazer uma revisão. Eu concluo colocando, eu acho que essa COP tem que ficar muito atenta com o grupo que vai trabalhar os critérios para a implementação do acordo, que tem até 2018 para apresentá-los. Porque nesses critérios não pode ficar apenas o acompanhamento, se os países estão cumprindo ou não. Talvez nesses critérios esteja colocada a oportunidade de pensarmos em financiamento, em novos recursos, como vamos trabalhar uma nova organização das atividades econômicas que venham desse país e eu diria, trabalhar um pouco e observar bem a regulação desses setores. Eu vejo com muita preocupação, porque nós tivemos uma mudança muito grande no cenário mundial, e aí nós tivemos a grande conquista do Acordo de Paris e temos agora a fase mais complexa, que é implementá-lo. Então, não dá para seguir como nós temos no Brasil e em outros países, que demos a nossa contribuição e a situação de um Estado como o Acre, que evoluiu muito, porque teve sequência política com o nosso governo, com o do Binho Marques, agora com o governador Tião Viana, mas a situação da população não melhorou como nós tínhamos a expectativa, do ponto de vista social e econômico. As mudanças foram muito positivas, em 2 aspectos, mas estão muito aquém daquilo que nós precisamos para que a população que vive na Amazônia possa ter conquistas como a do sul do Brasil, por exemplo.
Well, with these words, we end this panel. Very interesting. I just a round of applause for the panelists, and I think very important comments from Jorge Viana about the complexity that is still we are facing ahead. So, congratulations to everybody. Yo no sabía. I didn't know. Yeah. I don't know what it is.
I just wanted to invite everybody. We have some food out here to the out this door, so we'd like to invite everybody to a little reception to give you a chance to talk more with amongst each other and maybe with some of our panelists. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, likewise. Yeah. Thanks for all your help.
Thank you.
Un prazer. Prazer. Yeah.
Okay. Muy bien. Hasta luego,